Ladies and gentlemen, the webinar will begin shortly. Please keep your camera open, and the host will keep your microphone muted when the webinar is going on. This is to prevent unwanted noise and disturbance. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to the webinar Learner-Centered Learning, Shaping a Generation of Independent Learners. I am Atifa Sri Ismiranti from Interior Design, Telkom University. It gives me an honor to be the moderator for today's event. I also would like to greet the honorable keynote speakers, Professor Dr. Khairiyah Muhammad Yusuf and Professor Dr. Syed Ahmad Helmi, the Honorable Director of Academic Telkom University, Parman Soekarno, PhD, our distinguished lecturers of Telkom University, main campus and branch campuses, and all distinguished committee and participants. Ladies and gentlemen, the main topic of today's webinar is Shaping a Generation of Independent Learners. This activity was conducted to develop critical and practical skills related to understanding learner-centered learning for lecturers at Telkom University, main campus and branch campuses. Today's webinar will be divided into 3 sessions. The first session is an opening session. The second session is the main session featuring 2 speakers from Purdue University, USA, including presentation from speakers and discussion with all participants. Then the last session will be the closing session, a conclusion from me as the moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, we will begin with praying. The praying begins. The praying ends. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, to open our webinar, firstly, I welcome the Director of Academics, Telkom University, Parman Soekarno, PhD, to give an opening speech for about 15 minutes. Mr. Parman, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Bu Atifa. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Professor Helmi and Professor Khairiyah, speakers of today's webinar. Bapak Ibu dosen Telkom University yang saya hormati, good morning and welcome to this exciting webinar on shaping generation of independent learners at Telkom University. I am truly honored to be here today, and I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of you for joining us in this enlightening journey. So in the rapidly evolving world of the 21st century, the ability of to learn independently is no longer just an advantage, but it is a necessity. It is a skill that empowers individuals to take charge of their own learning, to seek knowledge, and to grow both personally and professionally. At Telkom University, we understand the importance of fostering independent learning. We believe in creating an environment that encourages curiosity, critical thinking, and passion for lifelong learning. Our goal is to equip our students with the skills they need to navigate the complexities of the modern world, to adapt to unforeseen challenges, and to seize opportunities as they arise. This webinar is a testament to our commitment to this goal. Today, we will delve into the strategies and techniques that can help shape a generation of independent learners. We will explore how educators, docents, can guide students towards taking ownership of their learning process, and how students can cultivate the skills necessary for independent learning. I am confident that the insight and discussion from this webinar will inspire us to rethink our approach to education and learning. So let us work together to shape a generation of learners who are not just consumers of information, but active, engaged, and independent seekers of knowledge. Thank you once again for being here. I look forward to a fruitful and engaging discussions. Let's shape the future together. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Parman, for the opening speech. Before we're moving to the main session, we can take picture first. We invite all participants to open the camera so the committee can capture the picture. Okay, we invite all of you to open the camera. And during the webinar, please keep your camera open so you can actively involve during the main session. Okay, we have 3 slides here. Maybe we can start from the first slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, maybe the next slide. 1, 2, 3. The last slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Please keep your camera open and the host will keep your microphone muted when the presentation is going. Okay, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving to the main session. In this main session, firstly, keynote speakers will present the material for about 45 minutes. The session is interactive, so participants are welcome to participate actively during the presentation. Following that, we will have a discussion session for about 30 minutes. If you have any question during the presentation, you can type a message on a chat or you can raise your hand, directly ask the question during the discussion session. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, first I'd like to read a brief introduction to our keynote speakers. First, Professor Dr. Khairiyah Muhammad Yusuf, a full professor of engineering education in the School of Engineering Education, Purdue University, USA. She was a professor and the founding director of University Technology Malaysia Center for Engineering. She received her PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Waterloo, Canada. A practitioner, trainer, and researcher in scholarly engineering education practices, she is most passionate about guiding engineering academics and developing a scholarly approach and mentoring champions within a community practice. She had led engineering education projection in Malaysia, Afghanistan, and Indonesia. She also gained multiple awards such as Top Research Scientist, Student Platform on Engineering Education Mentoring Award, and many more. Next, Professor Dr. Shad Ahmad Helmi, a professor of engineering practice with joint appointments in the School of Engineering Education, Purdue University, USA. He earned a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Alabama, USA, a Master of Engineering in Advanced Manufacturing Technology, and a PhD in Engineering Education from University Technology, Malaysia. Before joining Purdue University, he served as an associate professor at UTM and accumulated substantial industrial expertise, including role as a maintenance engineer, an industrial extension research officer, and a mechanical and industrial engineer. Professor Helmi's research expertise spans both industrial engineering and engineering education. He has a global impact by conducting numerous workshops on outcome-based education and student-centered learning across Malaysia and all around the world. He has received multiple awards in engineering, teaching, and best paper. He has also published several books and over 150 published papers in reputable journals and conference precedent. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, now allow me to welcome Professor Shad Ahmad Helmi and Professor Khairiah to the presentation. You need to unmute.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for the University Telkom for inviting us to share our experience regarding student-centered learning, especially to Prof. Parman. And also thank you to the moderator for introducing us into this. Inshallah, we're going to share with you, actually just a sharing session, right? About student-centered learning, how actually we can shape our student to be an independent learners, which is very much aligned with the needs of the current challenging world. Okay. We also would like to thank our previous university. Both of us actually from formerly from University Technology Malaysia. So we actually owe a lot with the university, and most of our work actually was done when we were in the university at the Center for Engineering Education in UTM. Okay, for the outline of this presentation, we are going to talk about the current scenario and also the needs of student-centered learning, and the scholarly approach to student-centered learning, and end with the concluding. Okay.
Okay, we're going to make this session interactive. So please use the chat to interact so that we can gain your feedback. And, this is going to be a long session. So if we do not interact, it's going to be quite boring. Now, first of all, I want to ask all of you, do you know what these are? What these pictures show? Please write in the chat. What are these machines? And what is the thing shown on the right? Just take a guess. Okay, punch card by IBM, coding. Anything else? Punch card, kartu blong. Apa kartu blong ya? Card. Untuk apa tu? Pattern. Okay. Computer old program punch card. Ya, betul ya. Sebenarnya memang ini adalah mesin untuk punch card untuk buat menulis computer program. Satu card ni each card represents one programming line. Yeah. And when we want to program, we have to arrange the cards, wrap it around with rubber bands, and then hand it over to the mainframe operator. So this was years ago. This was like when we were undergraduates in the US in our first year before they migrated everything to monitors. So if you look at this, we have come a long way. The pictures on the bottom, okay, the one on this left-hand side is actually the mainframe computer. You can see how big it is. And this in the middle used to be a terminal. Okay, so you cannot see any colors. It's just black and white or gray writing or green writing. Okay, so this was what computers used to look like. If you are young, most probably you have not seen this before. These are the ones on the top are the more common things that we see. So technology has really changed how the advancement of chips has made everything so much faster. So we have a lot of talk about Industry 4.0. We started with mechanical systems. Then we have mass production where everything can be produced in mass, in a large number. 3.0, we have computers, we have electronics, but they're not talking to each other. Not everything is being integrated. They're talking about going beyond 4.0 now. So because of this advancement, we have a lot of changes in our world, from robotics, nanotechnology, 3D printing, and massive, well-controlled manufacturing lines. Now, in terms of technologies such as, we have artificial intelligence now, how everything is encroaching even into education, in the industry, into health facilities. So there's so much changes, cloud computing. But despite all these advances, we also see a lot of problems in the world. We have a lot of forest fires. The sea is basically just polluted with so much trash that we are really killing off the animals in the sea. There's so much pollution going on from how we conduct our lives, and because of this, because of the rising temperatures, the climate is causing climate change. The weather is getting more severe. The sea, the oceans, the temperatures are getting higher. So this causes stronger winds, stronger storms that we are currently facing now. So there's a lot of problems that we have. There's a lot of worldwide problems that we cannot solve on our own anymore. We need to be able to work across borders, across cultures, looking at all these serious complexities in order for us to live in peace and harmony in this world. Again, another problem that we have is the ethics and how we actually care about what we do in terms of safety, health, and well-being of everybody. Now, I think this hits quite close to those in Indonesia, because one of the flights that crashed, the Boeing aeroplane that crashed, happens to be the one also that crashed in Indonesia. The other one was in Africa. Now, this had a problem because of the lack of duplicity in the sensor of the height of the aeroplane. Now, because of the wrong information that the control system is getting, even though the plane is going up, the control system think that it's going too far up, too fast, and it's trying to push the plane down. So the pilot was literally fighting against the control system of the plane, and when they are not able to when they cannot disable or disengage the control system, the crash happened. So there's still a lot of problems in safety, in getting, in developing our professionals, especially our engineers, to think about beyond just the profits of whatever it is that we're making in industry. So these are other ethics problems that had cropped up. Some years ago, you would have probably heard about the problem with Volkswagen when they cheated on the emission. This was in Germany, then in Japan. Kobe Steel cheated on the quality of the steel that they produced to send to automotive industries and the aerospace industries. One of the latest ones is the Theranos scandal, where Elizabeth Holmes, who was touted as the next Steve Jobs, actually cheated the investors. They were supposed to make a blood testing instrument that require only one drop of blood and you can get all the information, but the science will not allow that. So these are the things that we need to think about when we teach our graduates, because other than the advancement, there's also the problems of what's happening around the world that would be harmful to us as a whole.
Okay, knowing about the current state of the world with all these challenges, can you please at your chat come up with what attributes or characteristic of our current student that we need to have, that we need to instill to our students? What attributes or what are the characteristic of our current student that we need to develop? Can you please share with us at the chat? Okay, very good. Ethics. What else? Yes, to be creative, proactive to solve problem. That is good. Critical thinking, independent, right? Humble. That's very good. Communication skill. Remember all the challenges that we have now. Analytical skill. That's very good. What else? Any more? Yes, very good, Miftah. Respectful. Yep, Yoka. Problem solving skills. Any more about this? Good ethics. We can see a lot of ethical issues here. Last one, if you can come up with the last one. What are the skills that is required, especially in our area, in Indonesia, in Malaysia? Determination and totality. That sounds very good. Okay. If you look at the in the 21st century, these are actually what was written in the World Economic Forum. The vision for in the education report, they mentioned about the three important areas or domain in 21st century. The first one is fundamental literacy. And the second one here is a competency, and the third domain or things that is required in the 21st century learning is character qualities. If you look at all these skills here, what are the most skills that we impart our students in our university currently? Most of the time, we concentrated on fundamental literacy, right? Sometimes we, especially with the current education system, we emphasize also on competencies, right? But very rare we look at our the character qualities. But for the challenging environment, these are actually the important skills that is required by our students, like curiosity, intuitive, adaptability, and so on, right?
Okay.
The question is, how are we going to impart or enhance the skills? And if you look at the in the engineering program, okay, the Washington Accord, which is engineering accreditation using ABET as well. But internationally, we have what called Washington Accord. If you look at here, many times mentioned about complex problem solving. So the first, there are around 12 outcomes. The first 5 outcomes require complex problem solving. The importance of students to have this skill. So we have to impart the skill to the students. And the other skills also required, these are the soft skills, which are also important for the student to have, in order for them to overcome the challenges of the current world. I think this is for engineering program. The same goes for other program like business and so on. Okay.
Okay, so ERB being part of the Washington Accord will have very similar requirement for accreditation, and I think other programs we have also the ASEAN accreditation, which some other programs would prescribe to, and they would also prescribe to outcomes-based education will have some similar requirements like this.
Okay, if you look at this picture, will this work? Who actually the one that with the mortarboard? Who is he? It's the teacher, right? And what is he doing? He's actually instilling all the the knowledge that he has, right? He's trying to give everything that he have to the students, which is very I think he's trying to be very good here, right? Supporting his students. But will this work in the 21st century? So if you look at this picture here, okay, the black and white is the old classroom, and the colorful one is the new classroom. Is there any difference when we talk about education? Mine looks like quite fancy. The classroom is quite beautiful, but the system are still the same. Okay, there's a lot of change in technology, but not much change in our education system.
Okay, so if we look at this timeline in the making of a professional, you can see that, we only have a short time when the students are in the university. So within this short amount of time, we need to instill in them all these possible characteristics. So it's a lot of work, but if we design it well, then we can get there. But if we do not really plan and design things properly, very soon they will be out of the university. But even though this is a short time, this is a highly formative time in the life of a person. So it's our responsibility to really instill what we can in them through good design, purposeful design. However, there's a crisis now in higher education. There's a lot of questions, especially after the pandemic. People are asking, are we really adding value? Are they getting the value that they want, that they really need with the time invested and the increasing cost of higher education? We need to ask ourselves also, are the quality of our graduates meeting the needs of the nation and the needs of today's world? So this is a very much a worldwide issue. And in fact, worldwide, there's been a decline in the number of students enrolling in universities. And this is really impacting a lot of universities, some of them even closing down. So to answer this question, to make sure that we know how to handle this, how to plan and how to design well the system, the education system that our students go through, we need to take a scholarly approach. Okay, student-centered learning is very much required in outcomes-based education, but how can we take the scholarly approach so that we can educate our students well within the short amount of time that we have? Okay. So as academics in institutions of higher learning, we need to be scholarly. Now, we are always scholarly in our own field. We know the theories, we know the theories of our field, but do we know how to teach well? Do we know the strong theories that's supposed to that could help our students to learn the difficult topics in our classes? But okay, so let's get the basics. What do all of you understand about being scholarly? What does it mean to be scholarly? Can you please share in the chat? What does it mean to be scholarly? Anything? Anybody? Yeah. Dr. Fitri, evaluating information, ideas subjectively, questioning assumptions, considering alternative perspectives. Okay, the scandal of Stanford. This is the data, the problem with the data. Actually, there's a lot in the news. It's actually uncovered by a student reporter. Okay, what else? What does it mean to be scholarly? Of course, the fraud is not scholarly at all. To live by way of thinking, being, and doing as a scholar. Yes, knowledgeable. Okay, very good. Now, to knowledgeable, we are all knowledgeable in our areas. We have higher degrees in our areas, but there's also another area that we are working in higher education, which is teaching and learning. So just like we have to be scholarly in our area, we also need to be scholarly in what we do with our students. So we need to also be knowledgeable and skillful with what we do with them. Okay? So let's look at an example. Now, this is a very commonly discussed theory to help us design our courses. This is the theory of constructive alignment that is widely used and even mentioned in accreditation processes. Basically, Professor John Biggs explained that when we have the intended learning outcomes, these learning outcomes should help us to decide what are the teaching and learning activities and the assessment tasks that should be done in the classroom to make sure that we can help the students reach the outcomes that we have determined. So constructive alignment has two parts to it. The first part is the alignment. The second part is the constructivist part. So John Biggs says that the teaching and learning, the verb in the learning outcomes should be activated in the teaching and learning activities. So if we want the students to be able to analyze using a certain, based on several different theories, then students should be doing the analysis in the teaching and learning activity. And our assessment task should be assessing how the students are analyzing it. So this should not happen only in the exam or in the assessment that we're conducting. It should also happen during the teaching and learning so that we can support the students to develop the knowledge and the capability to actually conduct the skill that we want them to have. So this is the constructivist part of constructive alignment. We should be supporting the students so that they can learn and develop and construct their understanding to reach the outcomes that we intend them to reach. So the teaching and learning activities, again, we should activate the active verbs in the intended learning outcomes. So there's a lot of active learning activities with various different ranges of degree of student-centeredness. For example, if you want to use active learning, okay, if you want to choose to make the students interact, how do we do it? Okay, Dr. Said?
Okay, let's say you ask question to your student in class. Usually what happened to the students? Is it A or B? When you ask question, any question you ask in class, what happened to our student? Yep, B, thank you, Dr. Fitri. B, again, Imelda. Yes, mostly B, right? I think we have the same problem. Either in Indonesia, in Malaysia, even in United States, we have the same problem. So all students will just keep quiet, right? So what should we do? Okay, this is we need to support our student or scaffold them. We ask question and then they do not answer. So how can we scaffold them? Look at this picture here. Can we get to that door? Okay, the red door. So somehow you just cannot jump to the door, right? So you need to scaffold them. How to scaffold our student? For example, it is a term called the zone of proximal development by Vygotsky. Okay, the level here, the individual level, you can see that the level of students, the difficulty that they might have. So we want to assist them so to get to another level. So how are we going to assist them? To assisting students so that they can go to upper level of better performance. So Vygotsky come up with this idea about scaffolding. So instead of just asking the question to the student, right? We ask them to think first. This one of the way is we call it think, pair, share. Ask the student to think, and then ask them to write the ideas, and then share with their friends. And after that, we ask the overall class discussion. So this is a way of scaffolding them instead of just asking question and ask them to answer. Instead of doing that, we ask them to think first, all right? And then write down the ideas, share with their friend next to them, and then the overall discussion. So this actually will support our scaffold, our students, instead of just asking the question and ask them to answer. So this is how we can actually let the students, all the students will involved in our discussion.
Okay, so this is an example. There's actually a lot more ways to do this. But these are actually educationally sound. There's sound theory supporting this. And normally, because the bigger the class, the more difficult it is for students to volunteer. And when you do this and you tell the students, once you have discussed with your partners, it's fair game for us to call anybody because we've given them the time to discuss. And normally we can get better response from the students. So a second scenario, we always give team-based activities like projects to the students. We divide the students into groups, give them the assignments. Which of the following do you experience? A, students very happy to participate and everybody contributing and doing their work well. Or B, you have a problem because some students become free riders, there's dominant members, there's in the end not really doing work, it's low quality work. Which one do you experience? Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, everywhere in the world we have that problem. Is mostly B. And it's really quite frustrating because we want to give them projects and the students don't know how to work together. Yeah. Essentially, they don't have team working skills. So since we are looking at team working, let us look at an example from cooperative learning. So these are the principles of cooperative learning. The activities, or there's recommended activities on how to have positive interdependence among the students, individual accountability, asking them to have promotive face-to-face interaction where they will actually develop appropriate interpersonal skill. And we also help them to assess how their team is working through the group function assessment. So these are the 5 principles of cooperative learning. So if you are giving your students projects, it will be helpful for you to learn about cooperative learning and incorporate these principles into your project. Now, an example of cooperative learning, one in cooperative learning, they have studied that they say there's 4 types of groups. The pseudo group, where students normally do not want to work with each other. Each member think that if they do work, then somebody else will get the marks from their effort. So essentially, none of the members are working. So the performance level of a pseudo group is actually much lower than the performance level of the individual members. Then there's the traditional group. This is the divide and conquer group, where if there's an assignment, if there's 4 of them, they divide it into 4. Everybody do their own work. On the day it's due, they just staple it together and then submit it. Okay, so essentially the group members are doing things individually, each of them doing something. It's done individually. They just combine it together and submit it. So the performance level of a traditional group is the same as the level of a performance of a single member, because they're working individually anyway. Now, team working actually starts at the cooperative group, where you can see positive interdependence, individual accountability. They come together face to face, look at the difficulties that their members are having, help each other, check each other's work to make it actually better. And you will see that the performance level is much, much higher than the individual performance. And then there's a high performing group where they are able to synergize and actually become very close friends and support each other, not just academically, but also emotionally and socially. Now, in cooperative learning, we are encouraged to explain the types of groups in the students. So normally, we will ask the students to read the definition and identify which type of groups they are and what type of group they want to be, and determine the kind of behavior that's needed to be what they target, the type of group that they target. So at least now they have a mental picture of what team working is like. Okay, they can define now what is actually a good team. But if we were to do it based on our experience, and now I know that I've done this before also, I just group the students together and I expect them to figure it out on their own. And looking back, I did it all wrong, because the students themselves do not know what is good team working. So how can they work together as a team? Having explained this, I found that the students actually became so much better, and they're able to resolve their own problems most of the time when we do the regular group function assessment. So this is doing it in a scholarly manner through cooperative learning. Next.
Yeah, if you look at just now, the characteristic of the Washington Accord, the first 5 requirement are complex problem solving. So the question is, how can we develop the complex problem solving skills among our students? If you look at the continuum of active learning, these are actually the degree of student-centeredness. Okay, the far to the right, problem-based learning, right? This is actually the concept or the pedagogy that actually can improve significantly problem-solving skills among our students. Okay, so if you look at the
Yeah, Dr. Said, there's a question here. How to reach or make our students become the cooperative group or high-performing cooperative group. Actually, we had just conducted a workshop on this, but there are ways on how to instill the 3 pillars of cooperative learning, the principles. So yeah, I think we can answer more later if we have the time. But we can also refer you to Dr. Fitri, Dr. Fitriani, to help with this, inshallah. Okay.
Okay, again, if you look at the active learning continuum, right? So this is actually the active learning, the degree of centeredness, and the one that can fulfill the requirement of actually enhance problem-solving skill among the among the students is number 4. And number 4 are the problem that drive the course, and we can use problem-based or project-based learning. Okay, if you look at the problem-solving taxonomy, okay, which one you actually did the most? The problem-solving or the exercise solving?
Okay, is it the one on the left, which is problem solving, or the one on the right? Left or right?
Okay, between the right one. Yeah, exercise solving. How about the rest? Okay, Osman, that's the right one. Yep. So most of the time, thank you very much. Most of the time, right, we in the university, we tend to, concentrated more on exercise solving, but not on problem solving. But in the real world, okay, the everyday problems is about problem solving, not exercise solving. And then the research said that this exercise solving cannot be translated into problem solving. The understanding of exercise solving, actually is not, you cannot use this. It's very difficult to use this to have a good skills of problem solving. So that's the problem here. How can we enhance our problem solving skill so that they can solve the everyday problems? Okay, if you look at the usual classroom learning, okay, there are next. Okay, we have what called inductive learning, where we have the topic, we told the student what to learn, and the student will learn, and then we give them exercise. Okay, this is actually on the right side where we do the exercise solving. But in the problem solving model, okay, we give them problem first, and the student have to identify what they need to learn, and then they learn what they do not know, okay, the learning issues, and then they apply the knowledge so that they will solve the problems. So over here, actually, if we use inductive learning, the student will actually improve their skills of solving problems. And it is very much relevant with the problem that is happening in the real world. Any question on this? These are a few examples that we give to our students to make it realistic, close to current problem that they might have in the industry.
Okay, so this is actually an example first problem in a highly mathematical engineering course for second semester, third year, or first semester final year students. So when we use problem-based learning in the course, the initial problem was students were not able to see how the knowledge, the theories that they used, all the calculations that they make, they cannot translate it into what is happening in the real world. So we decided to use problem-based learning because it puts the theory in the context where the knowledge is being used. So this is a first problem where the students learn about piping instrumentation diagram, straightforward control system, feedback control system, and they are asked to identify what they are. And before they can identify the type of control systems, the type of variables, they have to learn about what are the definition of the variables first. Okay. So in problem-based learning, the inductive model is actually based on the problem-based learning process used in a typical medical school. What happened is that in the medical school, they asked the students to, in phase 1, to do the problem identification. They do the peer teaching, learning together, they synthesize the knowledge, and then they apply the knowledge to the problem. So what happened is that in problem-based learning, students are forced to go into deep learning because they have to apply their knowledge to solve the problem. If they only have understanding at the surface level, they will not be able to apply their knowledge. So automatically, students and the instructor will know, the facilitator would know whether the students actually understand what they are learning. However, in the medical school model, they have small groups, up to 10 to 12 students per PBL tutorial. And this was not possible because we had a typical class. So what we did was we extracted the pattern in cooperative learning, translated into these 3 steps. Individually, we ask the students to construct the knowledge on their own first, then they interact with their team member to have a better understanding and deeper knowledge about what they're learning. And then we have an overall class instruction with the instructor or the facilitator to make sure that students actually understand and go to the deep level of understanding. So we translated the medical school PBL process into this cooperative problem-based learning model. This is actually a scaffolding for the students from the time they receive the problem to finally presenting and reflecting upon what they have learned. Now, we did not have special facilities when we were doing this, so this is just a typical class. The only thing that I requested from our faculty administrators was that please do not fix the chairs, because we need the chairs to be flexible so that we can turn the chairs and the students can work in a group together. And we didn't have special glass or whiteboards around the classroom. So what we did was we used flip chart papers and put it on the walls. So that was the best that we had at that time. That was a long time ago. So what we did was we gave the students a series of problems. So the problem can be connected to one another or it can be different. So it depends on what we have at that semester. And the last semester, the last part of the problem is always a real industry problem. For the process control class, we asked the students to, we gave the students actually a control design problem based on a real plant, and we will go and visit the plant where the students have to get data during the plant visit. And at the end, they have to present to the plant manager. So this is an example of the series of problems that we gave the students in a semester. Okay, so it looks real, but it's not real except for the last problem. Now, I had a friend from Purdue University. I was in UTM at that time. So he came and conducted interviews with some students, and this is his analysis based on the interviews. So part of it is that the relationship between PBL class and industry experience, the students mentioned that they're not afraid or unprepared to get into their industry experience. By the way, the students went in for their internship right after taking this class during that semester. And they view the PBL class as a precursor of small industry experience. It's small, authentic compared to the real industry experience. But it also prepared them, so they were not scared to go to industry. So in PBL, perhaps they'll get a couple of pages, several pages of problems. In industry, it's so much more, they said, and they're so glad that we prepared them for it. Okay. So Dr. Said actually did his PhD on this. So he found that the CPBL model, the scaffolding, did enhance students' motivation, learning strategies, problem-solving abilities, and team working skills. So this is an example of problems that we give to our first-year students. The problem is always based in our introduction to engineering course. The problem is always based on something related to sustainable development. In this case, we did it for that year, we chose low carbon society. So it's divided into 3 parts. And in the end, the students have a poster session. So this was a problem on water conservation that we did. We have Syarikat Air Johor as one of the sponsors, and also Dow Chemical, and they sponsored prizes for the students during that time. Okay, this was during the industrial visit, poster session, the final winning group, and so on. Okay, then the pandemic came. So what happened? Can we do PBL during the pandemic? Yes, we were able to do it, because when you design things in a scholarly manner, you know what the objectives are, we know what the outcomes are, and we use the principles to translate it into a different platform. So instead of delivering it face to face, we did it in virtually. So this was how the peer teaching was conducted. We used virtual whiteboard. The students did the team feedback also virtually. And it was very important because at that time, I was teaching first year students, and the first year students have never met each other. So they are all isolated and they didn't know each other. So we decided to add elements of empathy in the team feedback. So these are the two questions. I discussed this with a lecturer in counseling and asked them, how can I include empathy? And she said that the best is to ask what are the help that they can offer and what are the help that they need. So this is the first phase, the first level of empathy. So this is what we added into the team feedback at that time. So the peer reflection feedback all started. So what happened to the poster session? So we had a virtual session, which was so nice because it was done virtually. We were able to invite scholars and stakeholders from outside Malaysia, from all over the world, because it was done virtually. So it was a major success. Now, finally, when we started having projects and problems throughout the curriculum, we noticed that the students started to get quite burdened. So that's an integrated approach. If we look at the scholarly aspect, there's a lot of studies where we do things in that are integrated. So instead of having different problems in a course or different projects in a course, we decided to combine the problem and the project for 2 courses. So this really helped us because we managed to divide the workload among the 2 courses, and the students feel more supported, and because the marks for the project comes from 2 courses, they were so much more invested to it. So we didn't have much problem in motivating them to try their best to solve the problem.
Madam, there's a question here.
Okay, that's a question.
Is there, in my understanding, the focus to what you explain is all in the process? Is there any theory or best practices to focus on to our students?
Okay, all the methods that I show you is based on one grand theory, which is the constructivism. So we use the theory that I explained earlier, the constructive alignment, which is based on the constructivist learning theory. So that's a grand theory, it's very big, and there's a lot of methods underneath those theories. Now, my advice is, unless your background is in education, I find it very helpful to search the literature and search for research-proven approaches and use those. Otherwise, if we are new to looking at all the theories, there will be a lot of things they say that we have to do to have a powerful learning environment. Usually the research-based approaches will have everything all embedded inside. So when we started doing cooperative learning and problem-based learning, I find that they have designed it based on very strong principles already built in. So that made my job a lot easier, because I just have to translate the approach directly rather than dig on and on and on about the principles under the grand theory. Okay, so I hope that helps. Normally in higher education, constructivism is recommended, although there will be those under behaviorism and cognitivism that we can blend in also. Okay, so concluding remark.
Yeah. This is actually by James Juliusted. He was the previous president of university in Michigan. Sorry, University of Michigan. This is what he mentioned. It would be would well be the 30 member of the 21st century university to find it necessary to set aside the roles as a teacher and instead become the designer of the learning environments, processes, and experiences. So you can see here, what he mentioned here is we have to put aside us as an instructor or lecturer or as a teacher, but instead become the designer of the learning experience, learning processes and environment. So we have to become the designer of the learning environment. Then it will become better for the student to learn. So I hope that will be some important things that we can take out.
Okay, so back to the this question, are we really adding value to our students? So they are our students, but still we do not have a right to waste their time by not gaining anything when they come to our class. So it's up to us to design the learning experiences to help them go through learning experiences that will help them to actually construct the knowledge and skills that's required. It is important that they do it because learning is by doing. We learn best when we do it. So that is the focus of student-centered learning. And there's a lot of things going on all over the world now with regards to discipline-based faculty members to have the skill to teach. And around the world, people are finding that it's not that easy to find those in higher education that actually know about how to educate students. So this is the most recent advertisement from the University of Sydney. They're seeking for Sydney Horizon educators. So all over the world, they're trying to find discipline-based educators. In this case, University of Sydney says this is equivalent to the research track. Those who are education focused and can actually educate in a scholarly manner. Okay, so 150 positions across different areas. In the US, this has been going on for a long time now, for about a decade. Just to share what happened, I'm in the School of Engineering Education, the College of Engineering. I have a colleague whose background is in chemical engineering. Her PhD is all in chemical engineering. She's in the School of Engineering Education. She was helping the chemical engineering department transform their curriculum in Purdue. Now, she was offered a position in Cornell University to be in the chemical engineering department, taking care of the education, helping them with the education aspect of chemical engineering to help their students to learn. Okay, so it's happening in the US, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in Australia. In Asia, it's a little slow. Okay, but other parts of the world is all for this. Now, I think it's very important for us to make sure that the knowledge we're imparting are beneficial knowledge that our students can use, because this will be accepted as amal jariah for Muslims. And knowledge is very important, and knowledge is only useful when we can use them. And as our concluding remark, it is most impactful. The most impactful change is to encourage learning. The most impactful change to encourage learning is through academics in the classroom. And this is the same at the school. It's always about the teachers. In academia, in universities, learning is always about who is the instructor, who is the lecturer in the classroom. The most critical place to interest and retain students in higher education and become world quality professionals is actually in our own classes. Unfortunately, the biggest hindrance in developing professionals of the future is the poor quality of learning environment in schools and universities. So this is something we need to think about, because although it may not appear in our key performance indicators, the impact is still very big. And worldwide, there's a movement on how to translate this so that it can be visible. And those who actually do it can be rewarded. So there's a promotion pathway for those who are very passionate about the education aspect and who really do well. But I'm not saying that if you're interested in research, but from my experience in UTM, those who are good in research many of them are also very good teachers. Okay. So because these are the both aspects of what we need to do in academia. So this is something to think about. So let us, try to approach this in a scholarly manner, so that whatever we do, the level is up there, in accordance with our position in the university. Okay, so I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Khairiyah and Professor Helmi, for giving us such an engaging and interactive presentation about promoting an educational approach that enables students to become independent and creative individuals, transforming the traditional role of teacher into a facilitator of learning that supports student exploration and initiative. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we've come to the discussion session. Now let us see the question from participants. There is a question from Mr. Uke Usman. How to teach engineering students to the current millennial generation? Can Professor provide his experience in the current millennial generation class? Okay, Professor Helmi or Professor Khairiyah?
The other side, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, actually, the one that we are sharing here is about how to educate our current generation with all the challenges that we have, right? We started with sharing with you the challenges, the current challenges of the engineering world, especially. And then one of the way is to use student-centered learning, right? Mainly problem-based learning, where with problem-based learning, students will learn by themselves how to learn. Okay, they have to identify what they need to learn, and then they will find the materials and the discussion with their teammates, and then they will solve the problems. Usually the problem that we give, and the student will find problems sometimes, and these are the challenging problems and the current problems that they're having, and they have to learn by themselves. Okay. Claudia, you have anything to say?
Yeah, the current millennials, the current cohort of students that we have, they are the millennials, yeah. They are born after, most of them will be born after, like, even now, maybe born within 2005 to 2010, yeah. So they really know, most of the time they really want to know why they're doing things. And I think by explaining to them what we're doing, motivating them and engaging them, revealing to them why things are important, in what context they are learning, why are they learning the knowledge, what is it important for. This will really motivate them to learn. They are not like our generation where we really want to be in the university. Give us anything, we'll learn, even not knowing why we're learning those things. But the current generation, they want to know, why are we learning this? Why are we doing this? So if you want to do any kind of activities, if you want to use problem-based learning or project-based learning, if you want to use active learning, explain to them what you're doing. And in the end, you really care about them. You care about their learning. So in our experience, having this human touch, this human aspect of letting them know, sharing with them what we're doing, really helps.
Okay, thank you, Professor Helmi and Professor Khairiyah. I think the challenge is not only for millennial class, but also for Gen Z. that we're facing right now, right? Okay, Mr. Uke Usman, would you like to add, or is it enough? The answer from both professor. Okay, is there any other question from participants, or anybody would like to raise hand to ask directly? I think Mr. Uke Usman would like to add. Okay, can the host unmute Mr. Uke Usman?
Okay, thank you very much, yeah, Professor Khairia and Professor Seth. Can I ask in bahasa ya?
Yes,
Saya
boleh.
saya merasa kesulitan dalam mengajar generasi milenial saat ini karena banyak sekali is many reason to not uh, uh, many reason to not mengerjakan tugas yang diberikan, ya, because mereka itu pinginnya cepat prosesnya, jadi tidak ada instan ya, instan terus itu yang dilakukan, terus the same experience with the your presentation is there is no answer in the class, ya. Uh, uh, I think is in my class in several student is question, ya, itu yang dilakukan. Tapi ada yang diam, ada tidak ada menganggap it's very easy, ya, itu yang digunakan. Dan daya juangnya juga rendah, gitu ya, itu yang digunakan. Itu Prof, can you share your experience in the class, the young generation? Thank you very much.
Dalam kalau kita lihat ya, there is one study by Bransford. He mentioned about the three lenses or domain that we have to look at in how people learn. And regarding this, the one that really connected is the learner-centered. In the learner-centered, we have to understand who are our learners. Siapa dia yang kita mengajar. Jadi sekarang ini yang kita mengajar ini adalah pelajar millennials. And the problem with them, probably, one of it is they cannot see the connection between what they learn and what are they going to use in the real life. Dia tak nampak connectionnya. Jadi dia tak ada enthusiasm untuk belajar. So we need to show them the connection of what we are going to teach them with what they are going to use, the real world. The connection is not there. So what are their prior knowledge? We need to know what they are the prior knowledge and how we can connect this with them. So kalau dia ada itu, sebab pelajar sekarang ni, they like to ask question why. They are the why generation, they ask question why. Why they have to come to the class? Since they can study all this in the internet, they do not have problem. They can even find a better lecturer to teach them using, in the internet. So why they have to come here? So the question of why, we need to, tell them the reason why they have to study this, why we want to do this, what are the connection with the knowledge that we want them to learn. That is one thing. Jadi bagaimana nak to bring them engage in class and then ada rasa mau belajar dan mau bertanya. So that connection have to be there. Satu lagi yang penting, the community center, the feeling safe in class, the feeling that they want to interact with their friends and they are not isolated in class. Kadang-kadang mereka rasa mereka isolated. Dia wujud tapi tak ada dalam kelas. Dia kiranya terawang-awang di luar. Jadi itu yang jadi masalah. Jadi bagaimana nak bagikan mereka terasa mereka they are actually belong in the class with us. The togetherness with their friends and all this. So itu yang mungkin kita kena cari cara, method untuk engage mereka dalam kelas. Ada dia.
Professor Khaireh, would you like to add something?
The matter of engagement, ya. Sebab tu itu yang kalau diberi tugasan tidak mau buat, ya. Jadi kalau diberi tugasan kena explain mengapa tugasan itu penting, ya. Saya bagi contoh dalam bila saya mengajar dahulu proses kontrol, ya. Memang pelajar biasanya tidak suka proses kontrol dalam chemical engineering, ya. Dia kata problem subject. Yang ini memang killer subject. Ramai yang fail. Jadi saya perlu kaitkan dengan mengapa proses kontrol itu penting dan sebenarnya ada di dalam kehidupan seharian. Ya, contohnya dari segi kita menggunakan air conditioner, ya, kita ada set temperature-nya, ya, tapi bila sampai temperature-nya, kompresornya akan berhenti, ya, dah tak perlu disejukkan lagi. Yang itu is a control system. Jadi kita bagi contoh, instead of saya bagi contoh, saya pula menyuruh mereka, okay, cuba fikirkan apa contoh-contoh kegunaan proses control system lagi, apa control system dalam kehidupan seharian. Jadi mereka fikirkan. So bila fikir-fikirkan, oh banyak ya control system dalam hidup kita ni, tetapi sebelum ni tidak tahu. Jadi sekarang ni saya kata, sekarang ni sebagai engineer, you have to design the control system. You're not just a user. Because engineers are the innovators and the inventors. Yeah, engineers make things, we solve problems, and to do that, in anything you do, whichever industry you go to, you will see control system. You cannot run away from this if you want to become an engineer. Jadi belajar kontrol ini penting sangat-sangat. Okay? Jadi kita beri semangat mengapa penting, mengapa in the future mereka mau jadi engineer, mereka mau jadi professionals, you need to know this. This is a part of motivation. Kita nak engage the students to motivate them so that they will put the effort to learn. They will put the effort to come to class. Dalam kelas saya, bila saya guna problem-based learning, lagi lah mereka kena bawa buku teks. Yeah. All this while, student pergi kuliah cuma bawa kertas dan pensel ataupun pen saja. Ya. Saya tiba-tiba datang kelas saya mesti bawa buku. Jadi mula-mula apa yang saya buat, saya kata dalam kelas ini, kamu semua mesti bawa buku sebab kita akan belajar bersama-sama. When you go through this class, you're going to learn how to learn on your own. Because so that when you see more advanced things in the future, you can figure it out on your own. Yeah. So, jadi saya remind students, in the next class, make sure you bring your book. Tapi saya sudah tahu, pelajar bila kita suruh, at least 50% takkan bawa buku. Jadi bagaimana nak buat aktiviti tu? Jadi saya fotokopikan the page that I need, tetapi saya make sure kalau student yang dapat ada buku, mereka dapat gunakan buku sendiri, tetapi student yang tidak bawa buku, mereka hanya dapat satu kopi untuk share 2-3 orang. Jadi nak baca tu susah lah, ya. Dia kena tarik-tarik kertas, ya. Tapi still the activity can go on because I photocopied the page that's required, but I give them some hardship. I did not give one copy for each student. Yeah, I make them depend on each other. So, saya ingatkan lagi, now in the next class, don't forget to bring your book because we're going to use it. So, in the next class, saya tak photocopy dah. Saya cakap dekat dia, in the next class, I'm not going to photocopy anything. So, if you don't bring your book, you have to ask your friends if you can share the book with them. So, then in the next class, 95% bawa buku. Yeah. So you need to know who they are. So initially saya buat scaffolding, ya. Saya scaffoldkan, saya tahu memang tak bawa buku, so saya scaffoldkan, saya bawa fotokopi. Yeah. In the next class saya kata okay, saya dah tolong. In the next class no more photocopy. I remove the scaffolding. Yeah. Kita ingat, ya, kalau bangunan pun under construction, scaffolding tu tidak ada di situ all the time, ya. Once the students dah tahu, kita boleh remove. Okay, so I remove the scaffolding. In the next class, tak ada dah photocopy. So from then onwards, they know they have to bring their book to class. Okay, so itu satu contoh lah yang saya buat dalam kelas. Ya. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Professor Khairi and Professor Helmi. So,
sedikit kalau dibenarkan, sedikit saja.
oh yeah, of course, of
Yang
course.
yang disebut oleh Dudestat tadi yang saya ceritakan, yang di-share tadi, mengatakan kita ni, we have to put aside of our role as a teacher, sebab pelajar generasi ni, mereka ni rasakan mereka boleh belajar bukan dengan kita saja, dengan orang lain, dengan internet dan sebagainya. So we have to put aside our role as a teacher and to become the designer of the learning environment. So we have to design the environment so that they will learn from this environment. Designer of the learning experience, processes, instead of just a teacher. Jadi dengan cara itu mereka akan dapat belajar mengikut yang mereka hendak. We have to design the learning environment. Yang mungkin bawa juga experience of other people to into the class. Then they will feel they want to learn. Itu mungkin sedikit masalah.
Okay, so the main point is how to create engagement in class, right? With students, and how to create connection with a real life, and create examples, for examples, what they can imagine. So how is Mr. Uke Usman, is that fulfill your question, or you want to add? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I invite another participant who has another question. Is there any question?
Two questions on the chat.
Okay, there is a question. There are two questions on chat. I would read it for you. In outcome-based education, it's from Nofriza Alam or OBE. The learning process is based on the learning outcomes that students have had. And we lecturers must know what competencies students have actually achieved before lecture begins. What is the best and fastest way to find out student characteristic according to their interest and competency at the beginning of the semester? Okay. Professor Helmi, Professor Hairia.
First, in OBE, outcomes education, actually the outcomes come from the stakeholders and also the universities. We have to plan well for each of our course so that it can tally with the program outcomes. So our course outcomes is we plan first at the beginning, okay, based on the preparation, what the needs of the industries and all that. So it is actually not from the students, it is our promise to our students. We promise them these are the outcomes that you can get from this course. Okay, so and if you ask us what competencies, we need to know what are the background, the previous background that they have. This is actually we are bringing them from semester 1, semester 2. So they develop these outcomes. So we are part of those who involved in developing the outcomes. Okay, so your question about what are their previous experience, we have to know what actually they have been equipped before they come to us. Okay, so that is the things, and we promise them in our course, if you completed our course, these are the things that you will get. That's our promise. It's not what they need to what they don't have, and then we fulfill it, but what they don't have earlier on, and what we will fulfill them. Does that answer the question?
I think it's about how do we know where our students are at the beginning of class, right? If that is the question, I think the question is about how do we know what the students already know and where their competencies are at the beginning of class. If you have a process where the dosen-dosen yang mengajar pada semester yang sebelumnya ya, ataupun dosen-dosen yang mengajar prerequisites untuk our classes, ada baiknya kalau kita dapat pass over that information on the students' performance in that cohort's performance in the previous semester. That would be the best. Then we can know ahead of time. Yeah. Regarding the students' interest, dia punya interest ni berkaitan dengan apa yang mereka belajar dan who they are. So what I do normally in the first day of class is to have a student personal information form. Yeah. Jadi di dalam personal information form tu saya minta student isikan information yang saya perlukan. Contohnya saya akan minta grade untuk prerequisite courses. Ya, kalau saya mengajar budak first year tu saya akan minta keputusan dari sekolahnya di mana, ibu bapanya kerja apa, ya, dia dari negeri mana, dari region mana. So these are the kinds of information that I will take. The students, for the third year students, I will ask them what are the grades for the prerequisite courses, where do they stay on campus, the kind of transportation they have. And then in the first day of class, we can have, because I divide my students into groups, yeah. So once I have divided them, I ask the team to introduce themselves and also point to certain information that I want from each member. So from this, I get to know the students. Yeah. Jika berkaitan dengan certain concepts that you want the students, you want to know if the students already understand because you will use this concept in the class, you can get from their prior grades. But then students also tend to forget what they have learned in the previous semester. So there's in certain areas, some people have already designed concept tests. So you can go and find this concept test and give it to the students. Because I know, especially in the sciences, in physics, there's a lot of concept tests that you can get and you can give to the students to know where they are. At what level are they with the basic, the fundamental concepts that's required to be used in the classroom. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So it's about learning how their previous background and experience before coming to our class, right? To know and to develop the outcome in our class. Hopefully it answered your question, Mr. Nofriza Alam. We're moving to the next question from Ms. Rismayani. I think abundance technology and also online learning method recently shaping out new learning lifestyle, especially for Gen Z. They are easy to find information using AI, so they no need to find out or read a lot of articles to learn something. My question is, how about the best assessment method for this condition? Oral test, open question, or closed question? Okay, Professor.
Okay. If you want to use AI, students are going to use AI, whether you forbid them or not, they will use AI. And in a way, it's good to bring AI into your class, to teach them, to let them use AI and how to use AI properly. Now, if we design projects or problems, normally it will not be exactly in AI. If we use it in the context of especially the industries around where you are, there will not be exact answer that they can find. What you can help them do is that, there are certain articles, journal articles, or certain technical articles, they can get AI to summarize it. But then when the AI summarize, do this in class with them. Select an article where the AI had done an okay job, but not really that good. Yeah, and this is normal with AI. Yeah? They can summarize the article, but then perhaps miss certain very important concepts or understanding or nuances that's required for the context of your place. And you can discuss this. And I've also had AI synthesize some articles or some concepts, and they use fictitious articles, in the reference as fictitious articles that do not exist. So you can also use this. So go ahead and use AI in your class so that students know to what extent can they trust AI. So your questions now, when you assess their writing assignments, must include the critical thinking part. Are they just accepting what the AI is doing? Or can they take whatever the AI has given them and improve on it? Okay, so it makes their job faster because they're not starting from zero, but you must include that critical thinking part. How do they know what is to be trusted, what is not to be trusted? How do they know how to synthesize best? And in the end, it is their understanding. Okay, so our question should be I would encourage you to use questions that is in the context of your area, of your specific locality. That will really avoid AI giving all the answer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Professor Hairia. Professor Helmi, would you like to add something?
I think that is well answered. Yeah.
Okay, so it's much better to teach them properly in the class, right, Professor Hairia? So they will know how to use AI properly based on academic ethics. And for the assessment, it's better to include critical thinking. So they are not only use AI, but they also think how the method, how they learn it, how they synthesize it. Okay, Miss Riz Mayani, hope it answered your question. We're moving to the next question from Mr. Asep Suhandi. How to effectively evaluate a team-based learning, especially on a class with large number of students?
Okay, I have this experience. Probably I can share with you my experience. When we have a large number of class and we use team-based or project-based approach, then throughout the semester, we need to have the milestones, right? So the milestone have to be from the beginning when they started their problem statement, problem identification. Okay, so we have to do the evaluation on this first, right? And then it goes into the second phase, third phase, till the end. So all these phases, you have to have the milestones from their writing, presentation, and all that, and we do the evaluation. And for the big classroom, let's say around 200 students, then you might need somebody to assist you, to help you. Usually our graduate students, okay? So their help or their assistance will really help us in come up with a good assessing process as well. And throughout the process, we have to have peer evaluation, not only once at the end, okay, at least 3 to 4 times peer evaluation. So at the beginning, if the team have problems, we can actually solve the problem earlier, right? So and then the second evaluation. So we have to look at what are their problems, what are the since the beginning, if they have problem with their friends, if they have problem with the problem itself, so we can do the intervention earlier on. So with that, towards the end of the semester, we already have all their marks or their we can actually evaluate from the beginning to the end, and it helps a lot. Not wait until the end to do the assessment. So that is my advice to regarding that question. Does that answer? Or you have any?
Okay, Professor Hairia, would you like to add?
I think that's fine. Because yeah, my classes, the most was just 100 students. So Dr. Hilmi had a class with 200 students, so he will be in a better position to answer it.
Okay, so we don't need to wait
Yeah.
until the end for the assessment, and there are a lot of
The earlier you assess them and you give feedback, the better.
okay, and especially peer evaluation, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think peer evaluation is a good idea too. Okay, I hope it answered the question, Mr. Asep Suhandi. There is one more question from this is from Mr. Almaki. As an impact of education, universities, especially lecturers, hope that their student will be successful. How effective is the learning process using team-based learning in making students successful in their lives after graduating from college? Could Professor give a comparison example?
Okay. I use problem-based learning, which is also team-based. So I have a lot of students who have graduated, and Alhamdulillah, they're doing well. Those who really put their best efforts, I have a lot of feedback where they say they hit the ground running. They could really use their experience that we taught them, that just like what the research shows, that they are able to adapt to the workplace very easily. I have students who have gone to work in other countries outside of Malaysia, and they're also doing very well. In fact, one of my students continued with her PhD in the US, and her project was in the Department of Energy, the US Department of Energy. So her research was conducted at the Department of Energy in the US. And she was sharing that because she went straight from academia to from her master's to a PhD, her industry supervisor, PhD supervisor, was thinking that she will not know well about the diagrams that's used in industry, namely the piping and instrumentation diagram. But when I teach using problem-based learning, I have to think about how do we use the concepts that we teach to the students, how is it being used in the context of the real world. So normally in process control, nobody ever showed the piping and instrumentation diagram to their students. But when I had to think, how can I craft the problem such that this is in the context of the real world? So I decided to use that watered down version, a simpler version of a piping and an instrumentation diagram. Looks real enough, but not too complex that the students will give up, so that the students learn about those diagrams. So what happened to my student in the US, because the simulations, she has to extract it from actual piping and instrumentation diagrams of power plants. So when she was given this diagram, she straight away looked at it, okay, and worked on it. It was not a problem for her. So her industry supervisor in the US was very, very surprised and was asking her, oh, you don't have a problem reading piping and instrumentation diagram? She says, no. So this is surprising, he said, because you don't have industry experience, but yet you know how to read it. I said, well, we learned it in our control class. As an undergraduate, the whole semester, they have to read piping and instrumentation diagram to get information. So this is a specific example when we start to change the way we teach in the context of where the knowledge is being used. It really helped the students. And it's acknowledged, and her supervisor was saying, wow, that's really good, because nobody ever does that in the US. So, and the fact that they already know how to work in teams, how to work across cultures, different cultures, when we mix the different ethnicities and race. So it helped them in the real world. And yeah, I'm really happy to see that most of them are become very successful in their own lives. So we have not done a detailed study where we track all our students, but from the feedback that I've been getting, it's been very positive. Yeah, alhamdulillah. Dr. Said can also share. He has also alumni that contacted him.
Yeah, you're mentioning about the effective team, and it's what the effective team-based learning. So actually, there are the principles of how to make the team-based learning effective. If we follow the principles, inshallah, they're going to be very effective and very impactful. So, well, if we do not plan well, design well our team-based project, then it is not good. Some of the students will actually have problems, and it doesn't create the interest to the students. So we have to follow the principles. I think if you have a chance, yesterday we had a workshop on team-based learning. I think you can get some information from those who attended the workshop, the 5 principles and how we can plan well to make the effective learning, team-based learning. In terms of the impactful, yes, I have a couple of students until now. He's already the director, senior directors of our industry, and still contacting me. Actually started from this team working. And not only once, I have several students, because they see how actually it impacts their life when they started to learn how to work in a team in the university. Where else they can learn to work in a team apart from the university, that the time that they have with us. So this, because once they are going out there, they have to be in a team and with different type of people, different races, different culture, different states, and we have to make sure that they have some, taste in the university so that they can bring that outside of the classroom. This is where we have the chance to educate them.
Okay, thank you, Professor Khairia and Professor Helmi. So it's about how we deliver our concept and how they use it in the real world. It will be impactful for our student. Okay, thank you, Professor, and thank you for all participants. Since there's no more question left in our chat box, and due to limited time, we need to end our discussion session and move to the closing session. Thank you for the discussion session, Professor Helmi and Professor Khairia. Okay, we have finally come to the end of the webinar, Learner-Centered Learning, Shaping a Generation of Independent Learners. Please allow me to take some highlighted points from today's discussion. Outcome-based education prioritizes active learning in its learning system. Previously focused on lecturers, the learning system has now transformed to student-centered learning. Lecturers are now encouraged to be creative to facilitate students' active and motivation in learning, to engage with students both academically and also emotionally. Active learning will allow them to be independent, interactive, and cooperative during learning. Before I close the webinar, let me remind you to access and fill out the feedback link that you will find on chat. Maybe the committee can send the link again, the feedback link, so you will get the certificate from the feedback link. Yeah, you can complete the feedback form, so you will get the certificate, and the certificate you will receive it in 7 days. You can see on the chat box as well, there is a link that you can copy it and you can access it. If there's a problem, you can ask the committee directly. Okay. While waiting for the participant to fill the feedback form, thank you to our distinguished speaker. Here we present a certificate for Professor Syed Ahmad Helmi and Professor Khairia. Okay, this is the certificate. Thank you for being our keynote speaker with interactive and inspiring presentation today, and also enormous discussion. And also this is for Professor Dr. Syed Ahmad Helmi. Okay, thank you once again to our distinguished speakers, our Director of Academic. Thank you to all committee and participants. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi